Hey everybody, welcome to Behind the Mirror. I'm your host, Keith Posehn, the CEO of Zorz, Z-O-R-Z, and I've got my team, Lim Fong, Head of Operations, Dafra, Head of Revenue and Strategy, and we've got a subject today, budget.
We're going to open up a can of worms, guys. What do we
Oh my goodness, are we going to open up a can of worms? This is a doozy because I mean, we've dealt with this, we know this, and I think we just like lead off with what I said in that meeting back in the day at Uber when people were like, I don't know, maybe we need to cut affiliate budget. I'm like, well, do you cut your sales team's commission budget? Do you tell your sales team to stop selling, stop making you money? No.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Why would you do that here either? Yeah, so I mean, boy, we got experience. Who wants to kick this one off?
Dafra, you had some angst around talking about this, so maybe let's just jump into the controversy.
We argued for 10 minutes. Yeah. We argued for 10 minutes before we actually turned everything on. So I will set the stage, and then I will exit the stage to the left, and you guys can talk about this for like a couple of minutes. So when we think about budget in marketing, of course, like there's like monthly budgets, weekly budgets, and that makes total sense. But it's always been really interesting to me how affiliate budget works significantly different than the rest of paid marketing budgets. Mm-hmm. Because affiliate budget is money that you already have in your pocket. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, in most cases, of course, there are certain situations where you pay on an action that hasn't necessarily given the organization money yet. That's fair, because it's not every single time that you pay on an actual acquisition. But a lot of times, that's the case. So since that's money that you already have, it's not speculation. We're not talking about a channel that is the upper funnel. It's literally money of a sale that has been closed. And that's money that the organization already has. At that point, it's interesting to wonder whether this is budget that should be capped the same way that other budgets are capped. Because in this case, it's money that is already acquired, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, there are some guardrails that need to be put in place. You have your like cookie window, and then you have your like locking times. You have a lot of guardrails, that are put in place to make sure that those transactions are real. They're legitimate. That is money that the organization has indeed earned. Those are not things that are going to be bought and then returned just for somebody to profit from the affiliate commission. Assuming that all of these guardrails are put in place, it begs the question, should affiliate budget be treated the same way as budgets from other channels? I have a small thing to add a little bit later on, but yeah, let's just chat about this.
I think in all performance marketing channels, you're thinking about return on investment, return on ad spend. And sometimes that is another kind of like guardrail or like a performance metric that you have to achieve. And fortunately for affiliate performance marketing, generally your ROAS is very, very strong. And yes, you could always put more money into it, but there's those marginal returns that are going to happen. And so the market will tell you basically like how far can you go.
Exactly.
And internally, you have to have a target for yourself, for your channel, for your ROAS or your ROI, and they'll tell you. I think the challenge with affiliate marketing in general is finding the scale. Right? Like there's a point where you're tapped out, right? Like there's just so many partners you can reach out to, or so many partners who are interested in promoting your brand, so many creators, etc. Those are the limitations. That is different from other performance marketing channels like Meta or TikTok or search, where you can put more money into it and expect to get some kind of return. That return might be a lot lower. From our experience, that ROAS, that return on ad spend, generally is a lot lower. We always argue that a channel should be uncapped. The market will tell us when you're capped, basically on how you perform, the feedback that you get, which partners say yes or no, like we don't like these terms or whatever it is. But the market will dictate that.
Yeah. And so, with that note, it's an interesting comment that you bring up there, Liv, because affiliate and partnerships in general are not a channel with a consistent level of elasticity. It's not a channel like Google search where you can try and just pour more money in to get clicks. There's limits to elasticity in the channel from not just at a channel level, but at a partner level and even at a placement level in the partner. And so the way that you manage that complexity in terms of ROAS, and efficiency is really interesting. And that's a subject for listeners. You look out for our business whiteboard channel series on our business whiteboard series on YouTube, on the Zors YouTube channel. You got to go check out. We're going to be releasing those very soon if they're not already out the door as of recording. But going from there, Lim, too, it's interesting because that discussion, I've had this discussion with finance teams a number of times, was like, guys, like, why are you thinking of it this way? This is not a channel you put money to and you hope you get results. This is a channel you get the results already. So choose the efficiency you want. If you want less volume, but really, it's a trade-off generally, efficiency versus volume. The less efficient you want to be in a way gives you an opportunity for more volume to drive more overall growth, which will have a benefit to the business. It will have a lift on other channels. It will have a halo effect on the brand. We've seen that with influencer many times too. And so that improvement in the overall health of the business comes from deciding, like, I'm going to sacrifice some, strategically as a brand, saying, I'm going to sacrifice some efficiency in a channel that's stupidly great ROAS at like 20, 30x ROAS and go, you know what, that's okay if it's 15, because the effect on the business is going to be much more, much broader in that instance. And that's been a thing we've had to talk with finance teams about, get them to understand, but it's still a subject or a wall we keep coming up against. It's interesting because
there's an analogy
that
I've brought up several times, and I probably learned this from you, Keith, is affiliate channel is like a distributed sales team.
Yeah.
So you have to keep funneling money and investing in your channel with your partners. You can have 100 partners, 200 partners. You should be thinking about them as each one is an individual salesperson selling your story, your product, your service to their audience. And we can't whipsaw using budgets as a lever.
Oh man, yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, you both have seen this. It's like affiliate is not a channel that turns on a dime. It's one where, like, who would cut their sales team's commission by 50%, from one month to the next? Your sales team would quit. And well, they should, right? And so if we think of it through that lens, it makes it much easier to understand why you don't want to approach the channel in a way that you might a much more elastic channel like display, for example.
An illustration would be, think about a website that happens to talk to your target audience. And think about a website that has real estate where they're able to talk about maybe 3 partners at once. Let's just say that, right? And then that partner gives up that real estate. So it gives up 30%, 33% of the real estate to talk about your product. And everything is going well. And then at some point in the middle of the month, you tell them, hey, actually, we no longer have any budget. And the partner is saying, but I'm actually bringing you customers that are buying things. And then you're paying me based on the things that they're buying. So that's money that's already in your pocket. And you tell them, no, at this time, we actually do not have the budget anymore. That partner scrambling to try to replace whatever income they lost from you all of a sudden deciding you didn't have budget. That is something they're going to remember. And that is something that is going to mark you as somebody who's not necessarily the most trustworthy partner for them to have. So when they think in the future about how to stack their shelves, pretty much, right? So what products to actually put on their website, you won't be top of mind. And even if you come back in a few weeks and you say, hey, now we have budget, let's just go ahead and resume the partnership. At that point, they have struggled to find somebody to replace you, to replace that revenue that they lost. And the opportunity cost is just too high for them to go ahead to go back to you. So a partnership, well, it is a partnership. That's number one. That is something to keep in mind. It is a partnership that brings you money that is not speculative, it's actual dollars. And yeah, like Lim said, you have to think about every single one of those partners as someone who is actually pushing your products out into the world to their audiences.
Yeah.
And if you have to cut budgets or change budgets or change your targets, and that happens, right? Every business this happens.
Yeah.
It's about communicating and having that partner development motion in place where you have a relationship with them, you're getting on the phone with them on a regular basis, and being upfront about the business situation. Most of the times they all understand, but it's about managing that relationship. They're people too, right? They're people.
Yeah, you both make a really interesting point that I think we can like jump on as far as a concept too. Like one of them is we're leveraging second order trust in a sense. So first order trust, you have to build the first order trust between your brand and your partners. If there's no trust there, it's very, because there's some trust. There's always a trust that you're going to pay, that whatever's going to happen, you're going to pay, that you can at least be relied upon to pay for something that's legit. So there's a baseline level of trust that needs to be there. But then the second order trust it's the impact. You're leveraging a small degree of trust between you and a partner to gain their trust between themselves and their audience, between your partner and their audience. So if it's the notion that people are going to trust, Google to say that someone is relevant, you're leveraging as an advertiser the trust people have in Google. Google has to trust that you're legit, that you're a real business, that you're not going to mess with them or do spammy things. And thus that's how you leverage the massively high degree of trust that Google has. It's the same thing with any partner, but now you're in a program, you don't have one channel, you don't have one Google account. You got 300, 400, maybe 1,000 affiliates driving traffic. In customer referral programs, it's the same thing. You have 10, 20, 100,000 customers telling others about your brand. You're leveraging the trust they have in you to capture a far higher degree of second order trust they have with the people they're reaching. And it's one where if that trust is lost, it's extremely hard to regain. And we've seen that before where, I don't know if anyone remembers Best Buy, when Best Buy cut their commissions by like 90% back in, I want to say 2010, 2011, it was amazing. And it was just a complete nightmare for a lot of partners that just were like, wait a minute, what? Why would you do that? Now, whether that worked out in the end or not for Best Buy, it cost them trust in such a high degree that shifted a ton of traffic to partners like Amazon, who paid frankly better at the time and were far more trustworthy and more reliable, or even smaller brands and other things. So it created a big shift from it. I'm not too close to what happened exactly there, but it was interesting as an observer at the time who was an affiliate for Best Buy in watching how that happened. And that lost trust did have a price in the industry.
There's one thing that I would like to touch on, but I think that's a topic for another conversation. Marketing mix modeling.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
But I will skirt around the topic. When we think about an MMM model, the input of an MMM model generally is money spent, and then the output is money made. Most MMM models run that way. Input is money spent, output is money made. So one thing that crystallizes what we're talking about so well is that at some point in my career, I ended up in a room where there was an MMM model that had been run, that had been created, where the performance for affiliates was absolutely abysmal. And I asked to understand why. Because, of course, the ROAS of the channel was really good. The incrementality of the channel was there, and I was just very confused as to why I was looking at the results I was looking at. And, of course, this is a big room with all of the channels in. Everybody's just chatting. We're just trying to understand how the model was run. And the team that ran the model and created the model didn't really, they were engineers, right? And data scientists. And they did not have any expertise in marketing. Another reason why those teams actually need to talk and collaborate a little bit to create models like this. They had probably spoken to larger channels like your search and your display, but I do not think that we were invited to any kind of conversations about the creation of a model like that. Then we end up in a situation where, of course, the performance of affiliates is abysmal. And I asked them, can you please just in very simple words explain to me, tell me why this is happening? I don't put myself above or like the channel above, any kind of doubt. Of course, if the performance is not good, this is something we need to take a look at. But I just had a feeling it was not the case. And the answer stunned me and shows just the difference in approach. They said, when we take a look at the input, which is money spent and the output, which is money made, we really do believe that the amount of money that is inputted in the channel does not match the amount of money that is made. Like, it has absolutely no correlation. I was very confused. And I asked them, how is that possible? And they gave me the example of search. Well, if this week we have X amount of spend on search, generally next week we can definitely see that we have made X amount of money. If we have 2x the amount of spend on search the following week, we can see 1.7 or like 1.6, like, because the returns are going to be diminishing, but it goes generally in somewhat the right direction. We cannot see that in affiliates. I said, of course we can't, because it doesn't work that way. And they were very confused. And I had to sit down and literally explain to somebody that when you take a look at money spent for affiliates for the first week of April, right? That money is money that was already made the last week of May, or maybe even before, depending on the length of your cookie window. So you taking the amount of money that was spent the first week of April and trying to correlate that money to how much was made the second week of April, like it would be for any other channel. You're literally comparing apples and oranges. And those two lines of money do not even talk to each other. They're not even friends. They don't know each other at all.
Cohorted. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's an inverse relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not. And then there's zero correlation. So of course you're going to say that the channel is not incremental because you're comparing things that should not be compared. Silence in the room. And everybody just looks at me completely stunned. And I said, we were right here the whole time. You could have asked us. So it's just an example to say that money doesn't flow the same way. Money is not used the same way. It's not an exchange. It's not any of these things. In this case, we're paying for something that already happened. And they literally looked at the progression of money the wrong way. So the money would have been correlated to something that had happened 6 weeks before. And they were trying to correlate it to something that happened later, not realizing that those things didn't have anything in common. So just to explain how budget in this case is just fundamentally different from the budget from other channels. MMM is a whole other discussion we need to have, on another day on the podcast, but this is just an illustration.
Yep. I find it interesting too, because then let's say, because Lim, you're dealing with this right now, when we add media spend into the mix, then things get even muddier because now we have placement fees and other things in there. So now we've got two different sets of things because we have performance-based spend on the commission side, then we have media spend to get placements, and it all gets interesting because now we have both showing. So we're having the actual media spend, which should affect affiliate performance, which itself should be a sub-channel of affiliate and modeled in a sub-MMM as such to gauge the incremental lift of the placements on the business itself. But that's a advanced spend combined with the other side of it, which makes this even more tricky. I mean, any thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a little complicated, but I think we have to allocate budgets according to how they perform, right? It's about the measurement. So the CPA is pretty straightforward. The flat fees, I think you have to try to put ad IDs behind them. And see what conversions come directly from those. Or most programs are going to look at it in aggregate. So you combine your CPA and your flat fee media spend, and then you see how many conversions, how much revenue do you generate across both types of campaigns, and then you just run your return on ad spend or your ROI analysis. I think it still goes back to having those efficiency metrics in place and placing those bets. And every month you should be testing. You should maybe try a different kind of placement, or be bold a little bit. And the important thing is run it, measure it, and learn from it, and then just optimize going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think, when we do this in our analytics platform where we're trying to look and go, hey, what's the incremental lift of a placement versus the overall channel effect, et cetera. But I think it's one where really bigger organizations with bigger programs, when you've got an ad spend and affiliate in the tens of millions of dollars, for example, on terms of commission budget and the media spend, you need to dedicate the same level of resources that you might dedicate to performance marketing in general, or at least the same type of resources to say, we need to analyze the incrementality of our placement spend on affiliate. And that's itself looking at affiliate and partnerships as a microcosm of performance marketing, but applying the same methodology to it in that context. So saying, hey, we need to look at incrementality of our placements. We need to look at the effectiveness of our efficiency and the elasticity of our partners when we adjust their commissions and we look for ways to drive more volume. And that's where it gets interesting. But when we've never had a dedicated analyst for affiliate and partnerships in general, and we've done this at companies with affiliate spend in the hundreds of millions. So
Once.
it just
Big
like
companies.
Once. It happened once.
wait, you had it
But it
once?
was in a very specific situation where we were trying to prove hysteresis. We were trying to prove incrementality in a very particular way. And it was a really, really big bet about how using affiliate rewards with people who are already using a product could actually end up increasing usage of the product, and that taking the reward away after a few uses would actually maintain the usage of the product high. So that was a very big bet, and it was a very specific test that ran
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
over close to a year, and where we were actually able to prove that including a reward in a very specific way, using that reward and then eventually decreasing the reward or taking the reward away could actually alter behavior in a way that was permanent. So yes,
Yep.
while doing this,
I
we
remember
had an
that one.
analyst. But yes, to be honest with you, for like the rest of my entire career, I never had a dedicated affiliate analyst. No.
I think it's interesting as we end up being that for our clients, which makes life interesting. But it's,
Yeah.
going back to that example, Doffer, I think that's one too. Like because you kept going after I departed. We proved that without beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can use a reward to drive increasing utilization that's sustainable. And the reward doesn't have to stay to do it. You can use it as a lever to change customer behavior, because really that's all that it is in the end. Incentives are just a lever to change behavior, and we were quantitatively proved that for existing customers. And I thought that was so interesting. Like, and it's still a question in the industry. Like, why is it a question? We know this works.
Because we did not write any white papers, but no, I'm trying to be funny, but because again, it's a difficult question, and it's a difficult test to realize, and it takes an incredible amount of effort. It takes a lot of dedication from the leadership team, and it takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of brain power to actually be able to do a test like this in an environment that has the proper split, that remains clean, and where you're able to read some results that can be significant in the end. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think that's like where we found, a great like product market fit for ourselves, is doing a lot of that for clients. Like, because it's so hard organizationally to say, do you have an analyst who actually understands this? That gets hard. But it's another one too. It has to be prioritized by leadership to say, hey, look, this channel or this area is big enough that it warrants being important to us, because the size of the prize is also big enough to matter to the business. I think that's often the challenge, is that prize is way bigger than people expect. And so once we get that in, it's like, oh, this is worth doing. And then we see the benefit of that. So yeah,
the affiliates channel tends to be a misunderstood channel. And I personally love championing this channel, this partnerships programs within organizations, like from outside and with organizations, because there's just so much value. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what the channel does, what it means, their audiences. And, if anyone here is interested in, diving deeper with any of us, hit us up, right?
Yep. hello@zorz.com, ZORZ.com.
Yeah.
One thing,
little plug in there.
One more topic that I'm going to put on the back burner. I feel like it's the third one today, but this discussion is just sparking some ideas. I've always thought about performance marketing in general as a house. That's the way that I visualize performance marketing in my head. And in a house, you have your walls. You have your entryway, you have your walls, you have your pillars, you have your windows, then you have some shrubs, then you have a roof. You have a lot of things. Some things are really useful, without which the house cannot stand. Some things you can do without, but that would be a really big issue. And some things make the house feel like a home, but maybe are not necessary for you to live in them. And I feel like that's just the way every channel is. There are some channels that do a certain job, and they're all different, and they all work together for you to have a house that is worth living into. we can dive into that another day, but that is how I visualize not affiliate marketing, performance marketing in general. So I do think that affiliate is a part of the house that is just very useful, but that sometimes people do not realize that is very useful, and then they end up with houses that are maybe a little dry, or like maybe a little like they serve only one purpose and they're very confused. So yeah, let's just dive into that another day.
Yeah, it can be a much bigger part of the house too than most realize. I think that's what's so interesting about it. So wonderful. Well, thank you, team. Everybody listening, thank you as well for joining us. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you all next Friday. So again, we are Zorz, ZORZ.com, and we are your strategic marketing executive leadership team. So as we go through all this, we're finding so many interesting ways to add value, and we really appreciate everybody's time. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.